Greetings and welcome back to QPoints podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. What's happening, people?
J Ray, we are back. This is the third year of QPoints, man.
Yeah, ain't that something? You know, this thing that started as an idea has blossomed into a labor of love for the both of us. And I'm grateful for you, man. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for all of y'all too that tune into us either listening or watching, man. This is a beautiful journey we on.
Absolutely. I echo J Ray's sentiments. I'm so thankful for you, J Ray, and for our listeners. And we just hope that you stay locked in for the ride, because as we grow, we hope that you grow as well, and that you'll start reaping the benefits of our growth as well. So just stay with us, man. I'm trying to tell you, stay down like four flat tires, like they used to say back in the 90s.
So Daniel, how's your week been?
It hasn't been bad. Except for Metro Atlanta traffic being what it is. Just the other night, I was stuck in traffic for at least 2 hours. What GPS said was supposed to be a 59-minute ride turned into 2 hours. And that's just a fact that's just something that happens in Metro Atlanta. Regardless of it could be a beautiful sunny day and you can end up stuck in traffic for 2 hours. It's just that. It's just one of those things we like to warn people about who insist on moving here, that Metro Atlanta traffic is not for the weak of or faint of heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep that in mind if you decide that Atlanta is part of your new me, new you situation in 2024.
Yo, so speaking of, I just read something very recently. First of all, and shout out to Leo. Leo is in the chat.
What up, Leo?
What's up, Leo? The Fat Girl Chronicles, y'all. That make sure that y'all go over to wherever you're listening to Q Points. Also subscribe to the Fat Girl Chronicles, okay? Because Leo is dope, and we love what she's doing over there. So shout out to Leo for hanging out with us tonight. But I just read something recently, Sir Daniel, that Atlanta was voted like best place to live or one of the best places to live in the country. And
One of the top
immediately,
10, yeah.
one of the top 10. And immediately after that, somebody was like, yeah, but don't move here though. So
No, please don't. We beg you. Just let that go. It's a nice place to visit. Come visit, but no. We really are full. The t-shirts are true. We're full. We're full. J Ray, how was your week?
Yo, my week has been good. It has been I'm once again learning a lot this week. I'm actually excited because on Sunday I'm hosting a training with my cousins. We're going to talk about building an online store, and I'm going to talk about launch cart, which is of course how we've built our new Q Point store. And I want to teach my cousins how to do it. Let's show y'all how to make this coin in 2024. That's what I'm giving. You know what I mean?
One thing about J Ray is always going to, and another friend of ours, Fonda, the two of y'all, when y'all get together, you are always going to come up with a plan for somebody's life. It may turn into just a regular, hey, how you doing text, and then next thing you know, I'm getting back-to-back jewels from the two of them, like, oh, so this is what you need to do, and if you leave it there, you can host it there. And then I'm like, wow, okay. Sometimes it could be so much that you can't even keep up with it, but it comes from a place of love and just pure genius from the two of you. So what I would like the people to know, though, J Ray, is before we go any further, how can they keep involved with Q Points and to make Q Points stand out above the rest with the ratings?
Yeah. So y'all are already doing the thing, and we say this all the time. If you are hearing us say these words, you're already doing the most important thing, and that is watching us or listening to us. So wherever you are, just subscribe. If you want to do us a solid, go ahead and hit that share button. All of them sites got a share button too. Share the show with your friends, share them with your colleagues, share them with your coworkers. Give them something to listen to while they on vacation, and you could share the gift of Q points with them, right? So we would love it if you do that, and that's absolutely free. Also, you can join our newsletter if you go to qpoints.com. You can go ahead and sign up for our newsletter, which that's really exciting. And you can also, if you want to do a little bit more, you can drop us some coin by buying some product. We have some dope Q Points product in our store, which you can go over to store.qpoints.com and get up on it. So please do those things. We appreciate
You
it.
heard you heard the man. Follow instructions. Do not lose the context. We are, we're a two-man show around here.
Mhm.
And we need y'all to support us as much as you can. And please, by all means, I think it's very good to leave 5-star reviews, wherever you can.
Yes.
Give us a review, give us 5 stars. Let us know. But email us privately what you don't like. Or if you have whatever kind of comments you have that aren't the nicest on air, just let us know in private and we'll look at them and decide whether or not we're going to do something about it. Jerry and I have been having this conversation behind the scenes for the longest about, have we been giving Lauryn Hill way too much over the past 30 plus years? And we're just going to just have a flat out conversation about Miss Lauryn Hill and her shenanigans. Now, since that clip went viral
Mhm.
of Lauryn Hill during one of the performances of that very short-lived tour,
Mhm.
she was at the end. She brought out her mother and her daughters
Mhm.
to be on stage with her, and she got very emotional. She was speaking directly to the audience. And the part that went viral that is stained on our brains now is Lauryn Hill saying, "Oh, well, they're always saying, well, she's late. Well, she's late. She's this, she's that. She's late a lot." And she said, "Yo, y'all are lucky I made it on this stage every night." And of course, that spread like wildfire. And what I'm going to do is I'm approaching this with empathy
Mhm.
for Miss Hill, in the sense that, like a lot of the other, especially young Black women that we've discussed on this podcast, that participate in this business of music, have gotten a real runaround, have
Mhm.
gotten the short end of the stick, get disrespected behind the scenes. They get disrespected by their label. They get disrespected by their bandmates. They get disrespected by the venue, the sound person, so on and so forth. So being demanding that people respect you comes along with age and knowing your worth and your value. And so you set standards where you go, you ask for certain things. And I don't think any of us are denying Miss Hill, excuse me, sorry,
Mhm.
denying Miss Hill that respect for her craftsmanship, for her artistry. It's just that there doesn't seem to be a reciprocation. Like, who do we have to be to gain some reciprocity, Miss Hill, when it comes to,
I see what you did
you
there.
know, you like that, to get, I think it's not that people are making this stuff up. Countless people have attended concerts and have sat there for 3 to 5 hours waiting for her to appear. And then everybody has the same observation about the songs not sounding the same. But there just has not, I don't think we don't get, like a lot of these young artists do now, we don't get a sense of who she is, because she's from the old school. They don't communicate with their fans the way that the new school does through social media. So she's still a bit of a mystery.
Mhm.
And it's like when you do come around, you kind of shit on us after we paid our money to come see you. And we've been sitting here for hours, and that's been a complaint for a very long time, and she's never addressed it until that moment. And then when she finally addressed it, it was very, shut up, don't, you'll be okay, don't worry about that, you should be lucky, you're lucky that you even see me right now.
Yep. Yep. So what's interesting about her um her response, or her what she said, was there is I was reading the Che Pope interview that he did, and he was heavily involved with the Miseducation. I think he was actually credited as a co-producer on Doo Wop, but apparently
Mm,
worked on a bunch of other stuff and didn't get no credit, right?
uh,
Um Allegedly, according to Che, right? Um but one of the things that he identifies was, hey, he saw Lauryn at some point later on. I think Chairman Mao asked, hey, did you speak to Lauryn after this? And here's his quote. um Chairman Mao said, did you speak to Lauryn directly about any of this at any time after you learned that you were not given full credit for your work? That was a question. Chase said, only one time. Even then, it was more of like a sort of dismissive type of conversation where it was like,
yeah.
we'll figure it out. And I feel like that statement on that stage was also like a dismissive statement of, for the audience, many audiences over the years that have been disappointed and ultimately disrespected by Miss Hill not showing up to perform, right? Or showing up really late to perform, and people have spent their hard-earned money to see her. So I so in reading this statement, right, or seeing her make this statement, I love what you said. I think stuff can be two things. I
Hmm.
can't imagine what it is like to be a young Black woman at the time. So we're talking about the late 90s. This is Lauryn in her early 20s. To be a young Black woman with this much fire and talent, to be associated with these men, right? And the men are kind of the in charge ones, and you're the little girl, right? Quote unquote. To be kind of in that space, and who knows what she experienced. So yeah, I do have empathy for that because we don't know that story. She hasn't told that story, and that's okay. Also, you're still going on stage because people have paid to see you, right? They have given their money to say, I want to see you. At that moment, it is your responsibility to deliver what the people paid for. So, we thank you for coming on stage every night. Maybe she said this and they didn't tape it, but we should have also gotten a thank you for coming to see me and
Hmm.
waiting for me to do this, because yeah, it's hard for her to get to the stage sometimes.
Because
Like,
life
how
be
that's
life.
a whole life be life. That's a whole other statement to be like, not y'all lucky, but thank y'all for rocking with me for 30 years.
Yeah. I think in general, and I'm going to stray away from the topic just a little bit. In general, I've noticed that a lot of us in this society have a hard time when it comes to apologizing. And when I say, and especially now, if you're a person in the social media, like recently there was that young man that, we've talked about before, but that has a huge platform,
Oh,
was
uh,
was dogging out Beyonce and then
mhm.
apologized in the same breath. And I was like, that's not an apology. And I think that's a problem a lot of people have, is that they don't know the correct way to apologize. And it's not something that we do well. acknowledging how we hurt people, um, saying how we can correct what we've the misgivings and how we cannot let it happen again. But that would mean too much of us having accountability, and a
Mm,
lot of us don't want that accountability, depending on your ego, depending on how your mind is set up and structured and what kind of trauma you've dealt with. Accountability can hurt,
mhm,
and it might hurt. It apparently might hurt more to you than to the person that you wronged. So, who knows? Maybe she's lashing out. This is her way of getting back for all the times that she's been herded off like cattle and told, here, wait in this room, get ready, and when we call you, y'all are going to come to the stage by this time sharp. And when we leave here, we're going right back to the hotel room. You can't do anything outside of that. You need to get into the hotel room because at 7 o'clock in the morning we're moving on to the next state. Your life is not your own. You're not always in control, and a lot of times when people feel out of control, they take control of the things that they can. And her showing up to the show 4 hours late is her taking control and saying, oh well, y'all are still here, right? Oh, you know what time it is. You know what I give with these bars. You know how I give with the singing. So y'all are gonna wait for me. And I think that's the only reason why the bad behavior continues, is that people still are showing up. I think the moment the moment that that curtain opens, if she
right.
knows that there's only 5 people there, she probably won't come out, period. But then that might shift her. That might shift her wig a little bit and say, oh, well, maybe I do need, the people aren't going for it anymore. Maybe I do need to straighten up and fly right. You know,
Mhm.
that's just my a theory.
No, 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 no. I think you're on point, and I'm curious for the folks in the chat. We wanted to for the folks in the chat, what are your thoughts?
Mhm.
When Lauren made this statement from that stage, and it was a sentimental moment. I mean, your mama up there, you got your children up there, and I'm like, yeah, all of that's beautiful, but what you said though,
Right.
you could have left that part out. Like, we could have had a whole different experience. So I am curious to know what folks thought, and we wanted to start in this place because we definitely needed to unpack the career of Lauren, which is a crazy kind of ride when you think about it. Just in
It is.
terms of the ups and the downs, like the ups and the
Right.
downs of the Lauryn Hill career, and to think, Adrian, to think Lauren only has 4 albums, and I'm being generous because Unplugged don't really count.
Oh
She
god.
has 4 albums of recorded output, and
Yeah.
2 of them are with a group. One of them is a solo studio album, and the second one is like a live thing. So she really only has 3 records for real.
Yeah.
It's a crazy career.
It's a and those are the careers that make the best, mythology, the best
Mhm,
stories, the things that we continue to talk about. They create this legendary persona, and it adds to that, to when you show up and people still want to come out and see you
mhm,
because of the legend that is, and the fact that she did this and they did that. And I just remember the first time I ever saw Lauryn Hill was on Ryan's Hope. No, not Ryan's Hope, All My Children. It
huh.
was on All My Children, and
Mhm,
she was a child actor,
mhm,
and of course, then we saw her later on in, on Showtime at the Apollo,
mhm.
during the amateur night, and then we
Yeah,
saw her in Sister Act. So we knew that she was multi-talented from the get-go. She was just this kid,
yeah.
but she was this kid with a lot of talent. and apparently there was, New Jersey, of course, is a hot spot for talent because, of course, you got Queen Latifah, Naughty by Nature,
Mhm.
that whole yes, I really aged myself by saying Ryan's Hope. But that whole melting pot of artists that was, bubbling. And finally, she got I remember seeing, was it Vocab? I think it was the Vocab video. And not really being blown away by all the material because but I was blown away by her
Mhm.
and their energy, because at this point when they finally came on the scene, Diggable Planets had already
Yep.
made their mark and got their Grammys and were like on to their second album by the time the Fugees came along.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh, okay, so we got another crew, with two male MCs and one female. Okay, this is cool. We've seen that work. It could work. And so here they come along. Maybe they're going to be grittier. We don't know what kind of vibe they're going to give, what they're bringing, but they come along and the album honestly flops.
It did.
That first
Big
that
time.
first album flopped big time. We got vocab and we
Mm.
got Mona Lisa. Da da
Yep.
da da da. What's the name of
Mhm.
that song again?
That song is called, oh, shoot. Oh my gosh.
Y'all know
Mona
what we're
Lisa.
talking about, though.
Yes.
So we got that, and that got them a little buzz, right? And
Yes.
which is fine. And then, of course, Lauren does what becomes a formula for a lot of female MCs later on, is that she pops up on features. I
Mhm.
remember being blown away by her on the Big Cat and the Ladies
That
12-inch of
Yep.
the Ladies,
Yep.
and she ate that rhyme when she was first because she was dead last, so that
Mhm.
means nappy heads. Thank
Nappy
you, Keith.
heads.
That was the name of the song. So yeah, so it was like, okay, cool. The album wasn't really all that, but they're dope. We know that they're
Mhm.
dope, and we know that they got the skills. And she definitely stood out. She
Yes.
clearly stood out.
Yep. No, you highlighted the times that the time that I really saw her as a star. I remember in between the album. So Blended on Reality was the record. It had ran its course. And thank you so much, Keys. I'm glad you said the Nappy Heads remix, because the one that was on the record was not what they did at the video. It was the
Shout
90s,
out,
y'all.
shout out to Salam Remy.
Salam Remy all day. Okay.
That's
So
really who they need to credit for the
Ashe.
comeback.
Right. So in between, so as the record winds down, um one, that vocab remix was crazy. I was like, the whole intro, I was like, oh, okay, this is the bag. That vocab remix, I'm like, oh, this is it. And Lauren was shining on that joint. She came out first, and it was like, okay, I see what this woman is giving. And then that Big Cap remix. And immediately, from a wordplay standpoint, she was just a smart rapper.
And she was the
And
nice.
she was the nicest of the dudes that she was with, too. And I think sometimes when a rapper is smart, it comes across as I'm just like a smart rapper. But
Mhm.
Lauren was like, she had swag to it. So it was like she was just smart with wordplay and was just way better than the people that she was standing besides, right? As an MC.
Mhm.
So I was floored. I remember when the first time I heard Fuji Lie, as we kind of led into the score, one, it was leaps and bounds. This is only 2 years after, right, their debut.
Yeah.
Leaps and bounds better than their debut single album. I'm like, oh yeah, this right here is the move. And of course, they was like, Lauren had done the Sister Act thing, so then we knew she could sing, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, she could sing too, and she sings and she acts. And they was like, okay, put her on the hook too. It was a wrap.
It was, that the score was a very cinematic album. Even the
Mhm.
album cover mimicked the Godfather movie
Mhm.
posters. So it was really a very larger than life moment. I remember that album being everywhere, and whenever they would end up on tours, I remember it was the Smoking Grooves tour,
Mhm.
and they came to the Variety Playhouse in Little Five Points, I want to say, and Goody Mob was on a tour with them. It was just a moment because they were grungy. It brought out all the
Mhm.
backpackers, but
Mhm.
then I noticed they brought out the white kids,
Yep.
the college kids, the
Mhm.
Asians, everybody. It was like, oh, you start to notice that this crowd is getting a little bit more diverse. And I think that especially happened after the Killing Me Softly
Mhm.
hit radio and hit radio and made its impact there. And
Yeah.
so of course the crowd changed and they started getting more appeal. And so next thing you know, they're on these big festival tours. So they got it out the mud.
Yeah.
As a group, the Fugees got it out the mud. They grinded real hard and they performed, perfected their craft. Praz and Wyclef were very smart.
Yep.
They knew to play her up.
Yep.
They knew to play her up. They knew to do those freestyle
Mhm.
where one is standing on the other side of the stage and the other. They knew how to do all of that. And so they made it work for them. And there was a fun summer of 95 and then 96 it was all about the Fugees
Yep.
and that and then we kind of just was like, okay, when the record played its ran its course, then we were all like, okay, what's next? And of course everybody starts talking that
Everybody
solo talk.
everybody's going solo now. And of course what we didn't know behind the scenes and we learned much later is about the relationship, that Lauren had with, Wyclef.
Hmm.
However that played out, I ain't gonna rehash it. And but how that also put a strain on the music, right?
Right.
And you have this woman who clearly has figured out that, oh shoot, I shine brightly, right?
Yes.
And I can step out on my own and I can do something. And I think I remember reading an interview, because there's been so many interviews post miseducation, where it was talking about the fact that Lauren was very committed to winning, right?
Mm.
So if they were going to do solo joints, she wanted to win that whole thing. And I was unprepared. I'm curious to know your thoughts, Sir Daniel. I was unprepared for the miseducation and how game changing it would be. I remember when I first got wind of Lost Ones, and I
Hmm.
was like, okay, there's this is real. This is a thing that's happening. What's this album going to be? So I'm curious, like when you first discovered or heard about the miseducation coming, what was your thought?
So before I get to that, we gotta acknowledge that both Wyclef and Praz actually had some burners on their hands before the Miseducation came out. Like we
Hmm.
were rocking like those summers in between the score and the Miseducation. We had Praz with Ghetto Superstar and
Hmm.
him and ODB, and then of course Wyclef's Carnival was a game changer also. So we
Yep.
got to give them props for that. They impacted radio real hard on their own with those particular with their own solo projects.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I think I've told this story before, but I was interning at a radio station when I first heard Lost Ones, and I was excited. I was excited when I heard Lost Ones
Hmm.
because I'm coming at that point in my life. I'm coming from the standpoint of Lauren L Boogie,
Hmm.
the spitter, the
Yes.
firecracker, the one that really, and I'm like, oh, a whole album of L Boogie, a
Yeah.
whole album of, her verse on Big Cap and the Ladies. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be some real some real true hip hop stuff, because at this point, you know, Kim, Fox, and Eve was on the verge of her impact, but
Mhm.
Kim and Fox and Missy and the Brat had
Mhm.
definitely changed the landscape of hip hop. And then so I'm thinking, okay, so we're about to get some conscious rhymes, but it's gonna be radio ready. It's gonna be some jams on there. I'm thinking she's gonna have some reggae influenced stuff that might, give us a little 1-2 step in the club and whatnot. So I really just set myself up. It's like I had gotten my mouth ready for that
For some
Subway
hash,
sandwich,
right.
right? For some hash, and you ain't got no hash in the house. And then I remember getting the working at HMV record store and hearing the CD, and there's all this singing.
Mhm.
There's all these acoustic guitars. And I'm just sitting there like, this ain't what I signed up for. And I was disappointed. I've told this story publicly. I was very disappointed on the first run of my experiencing the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, because I had set myself up for what I thought was going to be a traditional rap record, and it was nothing of the sort. It was definitely her taking um license and expanding her palette and
Yes.
expanding her talents, because she's a great singer, of course. But I just remember being like, I was skipping, okay, she's singing on that too, and I'm skipping ahead. I'm like, there's got to be some more raps on here. There's got to be
Mhm.
some more rhymes. And then the only other thing I heard was the Everything Is Everything record,
Mhm.
but she's singing in the beginning
She's
of
singing in the
that, but then
beginning. Yep.
she eventually raps towards the end of that as well. So I'm just like, huh, thought I was gonna buy it, but not so much. But we could not escape the miseducation when it impacted the way it did. And I remember one person telling me, don't ever let anybody hear you say that you're not a fan of this record. Yeah, he was like, I don't think that it won't bode well for you, because I guess they saw me as somebody that might have some type of influence. I was
Mhm.
just working at a record store at that time, but he was just like, no, 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 this album is game changing. And I was just like, I mean, I was 23 when it came
Right.
out. I'm still in my rah-rah phase. I'm still get money. I'm still, turning up in the club and whatnot. I'm ready to turn up. But here we are. Y'all want to light incense and play acoustic guitars and sing about feelings and whatnot, and you know and your love is in Zion and all this other stuff. I'm like, what happened is that life was moving for her at a faster rate than it was for me.
Yeah.
She was way more advanced because at that time she was pregnant with her first child.
Mhm.
So life had really gone into overdrive for her, where the rest of us were still backpacking and having fun. She
Mhm.
was becoming a mother and striking out on her own, making this very life-changing album for herself. So I think for us, especially for a young man at that time, just I couldn't relate to the album.
Mm.
But I mean, generate it was that was for women, that was an intergenerational album, and
Mhm.
they all could get into it. I just wasn't a part of that program, and so I felt left out.
What's the word, everybody? This your man, Mr. Al Peter, Mr. Peterson's Neighborhood, and the MPN Network. And I'm here today to tell you about what the MPN Network consists of. The MPN Network is an entertainment as well as a developing media company based in Jacksonville, Florida. Our goal is to highlight various creatives that exist in spaces of music, visual arts, podcasting, and more. Within the network, we have multiple brands that will parallel with creatives, events, and other brands. The Neighborhood Podcast Network is a collective of independent podcast shows that has various topics ranging from the latest culture news, mental health, sports, and leisure conversations. We also have the Groove Suite brand that explores the realm of soul, hip-hop, R&B, funk, and and more.
Blue Sweet.
Our health and beauty section gives a view on how to keep yourself in shape, in style, and in tune with your body and your mental. Last, we have the Fly Socks and Tees, an annual summer event that brings creatives together to celebrate the past years and victories that were received. So swing by our website, mpn-llc.com, and subscribe so you can stay up on what's happening with the neighbors and the groovers. Also follow us on our Facebook page as well as Instagram and Twitter, MPN Management. Building but becoming to the top.
You know, for this record, I think one of the things that this record is a testament of is the importance of finding your tribe, like finding a tribe of people that you connect with. Because what we ultimately learned is that this record was a collaboration, right? Was a collaboration with a bunch of talented folks that all had the same goals at the time, so they thought, right? And probably did at the same time, and then things change, you know, when, you know, things get different when money get involved, right? But
Where have I heard that before? That sounds like a lyric.
It's funny how money changed the situation. Isn't that hilarious how that's like the first line?
And it really set everything into motion. It literally did. That's why there's power in the tongue. You got to be very careful about what you say.
Ashe. So I remember one being instantly impressed by this record. My impression was solidified the moment I heard X Factor. Like the moment I heard that song, I was like, oh, ooh, this is where we're going. Okay, I'm in for this. I'm gonna go on this ride. And watching her blow up the way it did was inspirational. So we were watching Lauryn with like 15 band members on stage. Like it was so many people in the band, right? Watching her with a DJ. It was the first time that I remember having a band and a DJ on stage.
Mm-hmm. And she had a hype man.
She had a hype man too. So she had like a band, she had a DJ, and she had a hype man. So it was like part hip hop, part soul, part funk, part reggae. Like it was all in the mix. Her look evolved where it was like high fashion, but it was also Rasta at the same time. It was all of these things in the mix that made it just all work, from the image to the marketing to the music itself. Like the record, you just couldn't front on how good the music was. It was just a really good album, right? So I was more surprised. Well, okay, I will tell you. So I'm a liner notes guy. We grew up in the liner notes era.
Yes.
When I did see, I do remember having the reaction of produced, arranged, and I think it was composed by. There was like she did the Prince thing, which let me tell you something. Let me tell you. That's a rare thing to see, right? When you do the Prince thing, because I was like, I know Lauryn did all of that. I know she was going to write. I mean, I know she would get them lyrics together, but I did not. And I would have expected certainly maybe a producer credit or a co-producer on, or co-produced by, but it was like, no, produced, arranged, composed, like that did. I remember having that cassette and being like, oh, that's something that I did not see coming. And then to learn, so the record comes out in the summer of 98. By the fall, by the end of the year, so we're actually coming up on the anniversary of this announcement, where, you know, Newark files a lawsuit and says, we didn't get our credit on this album. And I will say that instantly made sense to me. She ended up settling the lawsuit, y'all. There's a great LA Times article, by the way. We'll include it in the description. But there's a great LA Times article from December 19th of 1998, which is called The Legal Tangle of the Miseducation, right? And it talks about the fact that I'm going to read the quote from it. The musicians, collectively known as Newark, are suing Hill and her label in U.S. District Court in Newark, New Jersey, claiming they deserve a share of songwriting or production credit on 13 of the 14 songs. And of course, a sizable chunk of the profits generated by the album, which at that point, y'all, I hit the mic. At that point, in like 5 months, had sold 2.4 million copies.
Wow.
That's a lot. That is physical product being sold.
Yeah, exactly. At that time, those were actual CDs, records, and cassettes, folks, that were being sold and had all of that information on there. But imagine you working tirelessly on this album with this woman, and I'm sure when they were in the in the trenches making the album and production, you become a family because that's a lot of synergy at work. You spend a lot of time with each other. You become a family, and then after that, you be like, wait a minute, my name isn't on the, but I wrote and I played. Wait a minute. It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like she says she sat there behind the drum with one of those old fashioned, she had the harmonica attached to her mouth, hitting the snare, pounding the bass at the same time, and playing keyboards. And she's saying that, oh, it was just all me. I did all of this by myself. And so I can only imagine being that band of composers and musicians and finding out that you literally got jerked by probably somebody that you thought was one of the good guys in this business.
And here is the testament, right? So hopefully artists today listening to this show, this is the reminder that please make sure that you do your one, know what your job is before you walk in the door, right? If you going in to do some stuff, okay, what's my role on this thing, and have that in writing, and then two, get them split sheets together. So at least if you don't get your producer credit, you still getting your publishing, okay? Because I'm on that writing thing. But the goal is to get both. I'm gonna read this quote real quick. To that point, Sir Daniel, Che Pope talked about in this Red Bull interview. Here was his quote just about what you said. He said, I was emotional about the project because obviously I had spent a year and a half of my life every day in the studio, countless hours on end, working on this album. I think I was a little too close to it. We were taken advantage of business wise.
I mean, a tale as old as Father Time himself. It's we talked about that ad nauseum on this podcast about young people just getting taken advantage of in this business. And yes, it is a business. I'll never forget one of the last time that I spent
I know
money
what
to
you're
go
about to
see her.
say.
I was with my best friend Daryl took me to the One Music Fest, and this is when it was at the Lakewood Fairgrounds, and Lauryn Hill was the headliner for that particular night, for that particular day. And so I had told him I saw her earlier that summer at Afropunk. And she played in our faces that night. She didn't show up to the stage until like 9 o'clock, and Afropunk was outside at a park. So of course, at a park you have to have a cutoff time, and there's no room for when they cut off they will cut the lights off if you
Right.
go over. And that happened literally in the middle of her set. The lights got cut off, and I just remember watching her, and just her behavior was very chaotic on stage. She kept barking at the band, and doing these hand motions of hurry this up, slow that down, speed it up, louder, back off, and it felt so chaotic and felt rushed and unrehearsed. And I was like, this is not the business. And I said, I don't think I'm good on Lauryn at Afropunk. Then when my friend surprised me with the tickets and said, we're going to see everybody, I was excited. Then I saw she was the headliner, and I was like, listen, I don't want you to get your hopes up too high, because he was amped. Daryl was pumped. He was like, I can't wait to see Lauryn. I can't wait to hear Lost Ones and X Factor. I was like, it's not going to be what you think it's not going to be what you think it is. It's not going to sound like the album. It's she's going to be very chaotic. And I showed him the hand motions and whatnot. And when he witnessed it in real time, he was stunned. He was like, why is she acting like this?
I am wondering, because I remember, child, I don't know how much of this stuff is true, but I remember reading another article at some point in the last 20 years, which talked about Miss Hill's level of creativity, right? How she is always kind of creating. Lauryn probably has endless songs that she has written because she's always creating, she's always making. And I'm wondering if there are two things that are at play.
Mm-hmm.
One is the control, right?
Yes.
The need to be in control of the space, be in control of the stage. And here's what being in control of the stage looks like. Now, having been around a lot of musicians, having worked with a bunch of folk, you know what I'm saying? I see those stage movements and all of that stuff as like, okay, baby, they can't follow all of that. Like, that's a lot. There's a volume thing. There is a speed up. There's a slow down. There's too many requests. You know what I mean? And and who are we talking to, right? So I was looking at that when I first saw it as like, okay, maybe she doesn't understand like calls. Maybe she doesn't understand like band leadership and being able to know what all these things mean. So one, I think there is a control thing, but the other thing I'm wondering if it's true is just kind of her artistic genius just kind of showing up in those moments, right? If you're a person who's on stage and you're in the moment, you want to hear it like you hear it in your head. And that's great, but you can't do that, right? You can't do that all the time, unless, going back to the point that you just made, you and the band are like one group, where it's like, okay, where the band is able to say like, I know what's going to happen here, because she's going to start moving. Let's watch her move. Because we've seen plenty of musicians do that. I'm thinking of Kipper. Kipper was in the chat earlier, and he had just walked into the club. There's video of this on his TikTok. He wasn't performing with that band. He didn't, but he was invited up on stage and immediately was able to call what needed to happen, and the band followed him.
Yes.
To a T. Was like, boom, the top, boom, cut, you know what I'm saying? All of the things you need to do when you have a professional band working with you. So I do wonder if there is a control thing. I have a couple of quotes I want to bring in. One is from Kipper. He says, I consider myself a musician, which puts me on equal footing with everyone else on stage. It's a team, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. When you have that, and I love the way you put that, Sir Daniel, is there are clearly things that Miss Hill is working through that we saw in the Unplug thing, right? Just kind of uncover, right? There are clearly things that she is working through and continuing to work through. And that makes for kind of this stage experience. And I do have empathy for that. I can love you from over there. I'm not buying a ticket to a Lauryn Hill show.
Thank you.
I can love you from over here where I'm at with my $125 in my pocket. I can love you for that, from over here, and that's okay. So I do want to um as we think about the miseducation in 2023.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, Sir Daniel, what are your thoughts on the miseducation in 2023?
As a body of work, I think it's beautiful. It's still very beautiful. I love the sequencing. I've grown to love the sequencing of that album. Um, the nuances, the kids in the classroom,
Isn't that cute?
all of that, all of that makes for a classic album.
Mhm.
It's truly a classic. It is definitely a classic. Um, X Factor, as you mentioned, is a bona fide R&B classic song that will forever live in, as long as there's terrestrial radio, will
Mhm.
always be in somebody's quiet storm
Yep.
repertoire. It's gonna live on forever. And yeah, I think it's definitely a benchmark for, I think, specifically for women,
Mhm.
for Black women specifically. I think it's one of those canons that Black women could look upon and see themselves in, and so that gives it importance. It does give itself, that lends to its importance to the community
Mhm.
as a whole, because a lot of Black women are able to see themselves and to um hopefully work out whatever they're going through with the help of that album, or
Mhm.
and feel them then that they've been seen and heard. And so that lends to the importance of that album. Just like that album is to Black women is just as important as, say, Essence magazine. I'll put it like that.
Yep.
And yes, and I'm giving it a lot, but it's true, there aren't a lot of bodies of work outside of, since that album came out, they'll do those types of things, until we saw, Beyonce gave it to Black women again in the form of Lemonade,
Mhm.
and a lot of her work since then. So that's why it holds so much credence and so much value in the community.
Mhm.
um so yeah, so, and then for me, listening to it with my grown ears, what I love about it is that it has so much hip hop sensibility. If I had the patience back then, I would have been able to hear it
Yeah.
immediately, especially when songs like Now I Know, the duet with her and Lauren
Mhm.
and Mary J. Blige.
Mhm.
I used to love him. And
Yeah.
so and the fact that that's a Wu-Tang sample
Mhm.
is so dope, and it gives it that hip hop sensibility, and which is woven into the whole project. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it now, and I think that we do not need, I think I've come to the conclusion at my big age that I'm okay not receiving another Lauryn Hill album, and I'm okay not receiving another Fugees album. I think sometimes those things are just source
Yeah.
gave them what was supposed to happen, and that was supposed to be it. Luckily for her, she's been able to sustain her life and her family with that one album, and that's probably why it was so successful, because it was supposed to sustain them from here on out. And I'm okay with that, and I'm hoping that she grows to find peace in that as well. And I'm hoping that she is exploring her traumas,
Mhm.
and at some point is able to step back and re-examine, the things that have been done, re-examine her treatment of the audiences, re-examine her treatment of the musicians. And it's so funny to me, the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, a lot of it, the stories that are told are from the standpoint of somebody being mistreated.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you went from being the one mistreated
Too much
to
treating.
doing a lot of the mistreating. So I don't mean to
Yeah.
get all Dr. Phil on y'all right now, but hey, there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely. No, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you said. I want to bring in a quote. So Carlton said, it's a strong and classic project, no skips at all. It's interesting. When I was preparing for this show, I went back and I listened with fresh ears, because I don't play the Miseducation backwards and forwards anymore, right? It was, I just don't do that. So I really enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm like, yeah. So the record still holds up. It still sounds fresh today. If a MC, woman or man, dropped a project like that today, it would still hit. You know what I mean? It's well produced, lyrically solid. To your point, you said it perfectly about the way hip hop is just interwoven into the whole thing. Is masterful, right? So you get all of these samples layered with the organic sound of the instruments. um it is an inspirational record to listen to. And I am also with you. I am past the point of needing a new Lauryn Hill album, because here's what I know. um the Miss Hill is not, we all evolved. She's just not the same, right?
Right.
It's not going to be, it might be dope. It might be dope. I don't know. So I don't need it. I'm okay also. I mean, we have to be okay with not getting a new Fugees record at this point. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's go and
People,
play the score. Yeah, we can go and play the
people going to
score.
prison. People are
Yep.
going to prison. So
Yeah,
there's
Praz will
that.
be in prison for a number of years. I don't know how many. And we got the score, we got the Miseducation. Let's rock with it. I'm okay with it. I will say, um I do think there is massage noir woven into the way we talk about Lauryn Hill, because we know difficult men who are musicians. Like, we lived in the era of Prince, right? We lived in the era of difficult musicians, right?
Right.
And I think Lauren is in that line of, like, she is who she is. She is
Mm,
now, okay, hold on. I know what you're doing, but hold on. Here's where I'm going.
mm-hmm.
I think what I'm really referring to is her as an artist, not necessarily her as a musician, right? She is a
Okay.
talented artist who is creative, who is talented and confident in what she does and what she brings to the table. And there's the fact of the matter is, there's plenty of dudes out there that are difficult and hard, that are less talented than her. You know what I'm saying? And we let them be that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, listen, people can tell their personal stories about their experiences with Lauryn Hill all day. That is your experience with Lauryn Hill. Um but I do think, as we tell some of these stories, um, just make sure that she's
Yeah.
not doing something that somebody else ain't do too. You know what I mean?
I yeah, I get it. I offer a little bit of pushback on hmm, the statement about, yes, I agree. Some of these dudes are awful.
Mhm.
A lot of we've met some of them. Some of them are ridiculous. They are awful human beings, and a lot of them are being prosecuted right now. They've done a
Ashe.
lot of they've done a lot of terrible things that are coming to the light. So that's that. Now, I draw the line because I think Miss Hill has positioned herself to be a one woman island,
Mm,
when in fact, okay, yes, Prince could have been a diva and all of that, but Prince could have gotten in that studio and cranked out 20 albums, because he could have played all of the instruments on his own. He could have
absolutely.
composed everything, and he could have produced it all and mastered it on his own and put it out for all of us to consume.
Ashe.
We did not get that from Miss Hill. And again, I go back to the thing about you can't go around mistreating people. There's a whole community of musicians that will not touch her with a 10-foot pole. And I don't think it has anything to do with a misogynoir, or any kind of just disliking her because she's a woman. I'm certain there's a lot of people who would give their left nut to work with her. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Still work with her as a musician, because she's that impactful, or she has had that much impact on the culture. But the reputation is outweighing the good.
Mhm.
It's the integrity. Thank you, Kipper. It's the integrity. I think if a musician had a chance to say, "Okay, you got to make a decision. Do you want to work with Beyonce, or do you want to work with Lauren on her next tour?" 9 times out of 10,
They're gonna be
everybody's
like,
going, I'm going over there to work with Beyonce. And not to say that Beyonce is beyond reproach.
Right.
I'm sure that there's probably things that we may find out 5-10 years from now about her,
Mhm.
because nobody's infallible. We're all human, and we're gonna be nasty at times. But as far as needing musicians, needing help to create the art, I think she kind of shot herself in the foot in that respect.
You know what? I don't disagree. I feel like it is really I don't know yeah, I don't know what the plan was ultimately. Um but we still have one great record from Lauryn Hill. I was about to say two. Cause no, the unplugged was no, y'all. That was no. I listened to like three of those songs and I was like, yeah, man, there we go. That's a thing. But we still got the Miseducation to like listen to and enjoy. And yeah, so that's our unpacking of Miss Lauryn Hill.
Miss Hill, Miss Hill.
Miss Thing, Miss Thing, Miss Thing,
Say,
Miss
right.
Thing.
You had
um
right.
yeah, what are your thoughts, y'all? Let us know for those in the descriptions wherever you are. Let us know your thoughts on Miss Hill and what we see as the future. I definitely see her continuing to be a touring artist as much as she
Yeah.
will be, because I mean she canceled this last tour. So you know.
Hey, it is what it is.
Mhm.
We still embrace her.
Yeah.
As a community, we still embrace her. She's just now she's becoming that auntie that comes around during the holidays that, acts a little too good for everybody else.
With her fur coat.
Her fur
Right.
coat, you know,
What's
and her
that?
fa- and her
Like,
fascinator, her fur coat and a fascinator on top, on
right.
her head. So, but no, we still love Miss Hill. We still embrace her. I just think it was just time to have that conversation. Like, okay, y'all, let's just have some real conversations about what's the heft that we put behind this album. But listen,
Ooh, real quick,
yes,
real quick. I do want to that point. I think I have more questions for the audience who goes like people who pay money. I
mm-hmm.
have questions. I have questions for people who pay money to see Miss Hill.
Who's still part of that? I think part of that is it's almost like it's like I have to see it for myself.
Oh.
And I think we've become a society like that, because of social media and whatnot, and the things that we've seen on we're wired now for ridiculousness,
Mhm.
and we have a higher threshold now for ridiculousness. and we want to witness it, and we want to see a viral moment in person. And so, and then there's probably people who think, okay, well, I know that happened with Shaw, but it's not gonna happen with me. She's
Me and
gonna
Miss
act
Hit.
right.
She gonna act right at my
She's gonna
show.
act right at my show, and she's gonna see me in the audience, and she's going to, throw down her handkerchief at me at the end of the show, and I'm gonna have that as a keepsake. So I don't know about that. So I think that's part of it. That's just my theory as to why people still indulge her behavior and her antics.
Get it? Listen, I love it. You like it? I love it. I know. I'm not swiping nothing.
At all. I'm not putting it on Klarna. I'm not doing none of that stuff. I'm not. Nope. I'll just watch the clips online, and then we'll talk about it on QPoints later on.
Yo, we have been on for a minute, yo. This is great.
For sure, it's because it's a meaty conversation that we just had to have. We had to have an honest moment with ourselves and with the audience about our feelings around Lauryn Hill, and there's just some things that we just got to let go. Now, what we won't let go of is you, listener. We want you to keep coming back.
So to keep up with QPoints, hit subscribe. If they have a notification bell, hit that too, so you can get notified when we have new shows. Share the show with your friends. Send it to Lauryn Hill fans that you know.
Please.
Ask them to chime in on what we had to say.
Real quick, what are Lauryn Hill stands called?
Yeah, what are Lauryn Hill stands called? The L Boogies. That's not a catchy name.
I don't know. If you think, what are they called? Tell us in the chat. The Hilltop Hustlers. I don't know.
That'd be hilarious. But listen, send it to your friends. Let them know about QPoints. Sign up for our newsletter. Visit our website, QPoints.com. Sign up for that. That would be amazing. And you can shop our store at store.qpoints.com.
Shout out to Carlton for the win.
Yes.
Carlton says that Lauryn Hill stands are called the Miseducators. I love that.
There we go.
Boom. That's it. Thank you, Carlton. Thank you for that one. Appreciate it. So listen, J. Ray, what do I always say? In this life, you have an opportunity. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
I am J. Ray, y'all. Peace.
And this has been QPoints Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We'll see you on the next go round.
Peace.